of this book is Traveling in Place and to Other Places, Selected Poems. I'm Barbara Sher Tinsley. I once was an academic historian. I've written a novel on art history in Italy, but for the last few books I've been writing poetry. And Traveling in Place involves poems that I read about being in my home or near my home, and certainly not traveling. This is COVID time and no one is really traveling. So the two other places, Traveling in Place and Two Other Places, really refers to my many, many years living in Europe. I lived in Italy and in France and in Spain and traveling throughout Western Europe. But my favorite countries were France, Italy, and Spain because I spoke the languages well. I traveled in Germany and I speak ein bisschen Deutsch. I had to learn that, but I really don't have any poems about Germany, and I'm sorry if that was one of your favorite places. I do think somewhere here on the front cover is a picture of the Parliament in Berlin, the Parliament buildings in Berlin, the Reichstag, but don't expect any poems about those. The first poem I'm going to read to you is really a dream poem, but it is about travel, and it's entitled Travel Companions. It is the first poem, page 1, of this book.
Yeah.
These travel companions are really third grade children whom I knew when I was in third grade, and I think dreaming about them was more or less a remarkable and touching experience for me. But it is also a travel poem, so it's traveling back in time during a dream. Roiling through my brain at night are images that can delight. Childhood joys of candy, toys, third grade girls, and even boys. Who put them on my nighttime train? Who bought their tickets, packed their bags, when 7 decades at least lags since last we met? Is theirs a practical timetable? Did their parents think them able to remember me as I do them? Will they change trains in deepest night? Or will they stay as if by right upon the playground of my mind? They'll disembark when morning light makes getting off my train all right. So, stepping down beside the track, they'll wave. I doubt if they'll be back. They didn't mean to frighten me, and scarcely could enlighten me. These country kids of early youth boarded to rehearse a truth. That clickety-clacking down time's track, we must remember to look back. So there you have a travel poem, which is a dream, and I was in my own bed at home while dreaming it. Traveling in Place. My second poem is also traveling in place. This time I'm awake, and it's out to my front porch. If you're from the south, a veranda, but in the north and middle west, porch. And it's entitled Porch Pillars. I write upon this pillared porch where breezes blow, hidden from the street, and riding slow, realize how I am beholden to 10 stalwart friends who guard my sweet old residence, keeping a roof stretched over my head so I can sit here safe, unseen, writing. I note their sturdiness, homeliness. Doric? No. This was a farmhouse, not a statement, not a sign. The architect eclectic as to design. Something recalls an ancestry Minoan, not Minoan roundness. Their soundness bespeaks only quality of wood. Holding up together, esprit de corps, still good. Long after their 19th century's rural past, these pillars should be on guard, standing fast. But as I sit here writing, I know the value of the land on which my old Victorian, with its pillared porch, doth stand. It will be the last of many victims thus effaced, crushed carelessly, erased. Until that day, I may have leave to sit here writing, safely guarded by 10 giants, all true friends. They will be as appalled as I to what will only be another senseless leveling of the past, another battle, but their very first, my very last. So there you have pillars on a porch. Obviously, this is not a traveling poem. Now this one, which is poem 17, this next poem, is called Hill Climbing. I live in a hilly area. It's a chain of hills that leads 16 miles from my home in Saratoga, Los Gatos, to Santa Cruz on the sea. But you cannot see the sea from here. However, I like to climb the hills that surround my house. Hill Climbing, poem 17. There are hills to climb, those gentle elevations climb I shall. Mountains, no, for I have vertigo and an arthritic spine. My highlands no mountain climbers do ascend, lacking hand or toe holes for ascending. Unlike mountains once attacked and won, these hills I know are never ending. Once on them, please take note, they offer little view, and from them no glory, no, nor headlines will accrue. Would mountain climbers likely them pursue? These hills are none for which one trains, and trekking on one suffers pains. Upon these bluffs one counts not height unto the sky, just forging on is what one's measured by. And that is the type of hill someone with arthritic spine, or someone's with arthritic spines, might be expected to ascend. Now, Outside that pillared porch, I have a lovely garden. I was taught to garden by my father, my aunt, and while they mostly planted vegetables, I mostly plant flowers. This poem, 18, is called Hearts and Gardens. A garden is a place where hearts and dreaming do renew amid hydrangeas, pink and white and blue. A garden is a small part of the whole, yet it can help to mend a broken soul. Gardens need a deal of tending. Broken hearts are there a-mending. We to flowers ascribe beauty, but attending love's a lover's duty. A gardener will suffice to tend the garden. And while I am a lover, now mostly of flowers, and my husband, I also tend the garden. All of us know what it means to be separated from someone we love, and then to get a letter or a phone call. I hate to say email. Emails are so dull. From that separated person whom we love. Aristotle said, when you write poetry, write about the universal. And what is less universal than being separated from someone we care for, especially now when there's a pandemic abroad? Poem 23, Separation. Your phone call left me speechless, without words, breath. It was so unexpected. You were so far away. I was so lonely. I wanted to tell you so much. I couldn't remember what it was. My heart was beating too loudly to hear you. Your very existence has always given me strength. I am whole because you exist. I feel precious because you desire me. Could there be a better reason for happiness? I remember being in college, almost 3,000 miles from my fiancé, and when he called, my heart did beat so loudly and my hand shook several times I lost the telephone. And that poem, Separation, reminds me of those days long since passed by. Well, I'll treat myself to this one. I'm wearing orange, and it is almost Halloween. This is entitled Ghost, Poem 24. Sometimes when I write, I am not really traveling, but imagining. Ghost. I feel your presence, ghost. No doubt you've come to haunt me, to reawaken memories of old sins, and by so doing, taunt me? I think I should, dear ghost, remind you of all the ones that you have stored behind you. I am not likely to be daunted by any claims to virtue you previously deviously flaunted, nor have I ever sought my own to vaunt. Ghost, have some cheese, please. You're so gaunt. Of course, that isn't a serious poem, but, you know, poets don't always write serious poems. Now, the next is a poem of travel, but not me traveling. It's animals. And it's called 25 Modus, which in Latin means motion, of course. Birds hop, snails creep, bats swoop, deer leap, snakes slither, who knows whither, mice scurry, minnows dart. I alone am motionless, since you too fleeting broke my heart. There, I'm motionless and with a broken heart, because someone might have left me when I did not want them to. Early dating life, I suspect. I'd be lost without these little orange stickers, because there are technically 91 poems in this book, but more like 114, because the last poem, 91, has about 14 separate poems. This is a poem about living in northern Italy, which we did after finishing up a whole year in France and Spain and Lower Italy, Florence, Paris, and Almunecar, a Spanish city due south from Granada on the Mediterranean Sea. But then we traveled from Almunecar through southern France and wound up in northern Italy on our way to Zurich, where our plane would eventually fly us home to sweet California. This is poem 53, Storm Approaching Vipiteno, Village in the Italian Tyrol, from the poet's painting. Yes, I paint. And I was out on my veranda porch in an apartment overlooking the Austrian or Italian Alps. Can't be sure, they're so near to one another. But in the Tyrol, once Austrian, now also Italian, when a storm came up, and you know, mountain storms are fierce. Vipiteno village can't be seen. I gaze into the hamlet of Tuin, where one tall spire stands alone against the coming tumult of a late May storm. I paint in oils. I'm calm, The wind begins to rise. The shutters on the balcony make rhythmic noise. The slapping of my paintbrush on the valley floor fills my artist's soul with something near to equipoise. I can myself dictate the shape of this impending blast. I know the rain once started will come down upon me rather fast. But I have never painted in a storm. Why desert the mountain on my right? Old Razorback. I love its blue, its white, its bolder definitions of blue-gray, coal-black. I've saved the tints of it for the range at left. I have not of those hues the turbid sky bereft. The forest needs but mixtures of blue-green. Am I to blame for mustard yellow on the plain? For melting patches of old snow? Or do daisies bloom below? From my balcony, could I know? The storm arriving, I take paints, easels, all else inside. I hold my head a little down, but not my painter's pride. An artist's life, when spent outdoors, will vary ever. The scenes, the shadows, innuendos, hints, these things will vex me never. The privilege of painting is capturing the natural world, mountains, trees, all skies unfurled. You see, I don't normally take all my paraphernalia outdoors to paint. It's messy. It's hard. You have to find a place that's comfortable and also one that facilitates the act of painting. So I'm an indoor painter for the most part, but I was very proud of my performance from my porch in Vipiteno, once called Sturzing when it belonged to Austria. Now the signposts read Vipiteno Sturzing, and increasingly Sturzing Vipiteno. My girlfriends there stopped me from singing the Italian national anthem at night after dining in a restaurant. They said, "Don't do that." The German-speaking people of the Tyrol are increasingly opposed to such demonstrations of Italian nationalism. Shades of World War I. I thought I would read a little from the last 14 poems. I can't read all of them because they're poems in themselves. But poem 91, which begins this slew of European poems, is itself entitled From an Old Travel Journal, Frankfurt to Rome, 1986. It begins by leaving Frankfurt and going to Normandy, but I have tagged leaving Paris for Turin by way of Chambéry. Now, I'm not slighting France on purpose. I am a French major. I got excellent marks in French. I wrote a history book on Pierre Bayle and did all my research in French. 16 volumes of Pierre Bayle's Encyclopédie. Never mind, I am leaving Paris now for Italy. I speak fluent Italian. Section 8 of Poem 91, leaving Paris for Turin or Torino by way of Chambéry. My last 2 days in Paris were fine. I took the TGV next day at 9, boarded at La Gare d'Italie. Didn't know what kind of seats they had in second class. Hard plastic ones that hurt my back and ass. Second class was hell. Too late for first. Cursed. My recollection of this trip is thin, not because I wasn't eager for Turin, and not all good memories of France are dim. My last romance with France. Quelle chance! I'd lived in Paris twice, studied once in Franche-Comté. When people spoke to me in French, I did to them, I do today. My daughter Claire, at 4, we'd enrolled in École Maternelle. All this still rings a bell. With time, I ceased to be a Francophile. Don't weep or smile. I do not write with guile. Vive la France et la liberté. But give me Italy any day. The next of this group of poems, en route from France, basically, to Italy, where I will wind up in Rome, is section 11, Genoa to Pisa. From Genoa to Pisa, then to Rome, slowly heading home to sweet California. The train from the coast to Tuscany's a thrill. No longer was I subject to a Gallic chill. I engaged in conversations with the aged, the youths. No reason for a trip this long unless one searches out somebody else's truths. These emerge. Be patient. They will surge and ebb, just as the seas. I spoke French with ease, Italian better. My journal notes, forgotten many years, read like a letter from the world to me. Read so well, I wonder now if I were then under the spell of a better writer than the one I am not yet. But try, you bet, one day to be. Poem 12. Piero Chiara. He was a novelist. 1913 to 1986. And two gentlemen from, not Verona, but Pisa. I made that leg in style, writing in my journal for a while. Don't smile. I wrote better at the halfway mark. I paused, discussing a Chiara novel clearly in my blue velvet car. First class, but tatty, rapido, heading south quite far. Two aged brothers in this train resuscitated my Italian literary brain, you see. One a surgeon, retired, his brother a professore of Italian in Pisa's university. Both widowers, but not lonely. They had each other, and for conversation on Chiara, for now, me only. Chiara, who even then was nearing his life's end, was to both gentlemen a literary friend, a most prolific writer, over 20 novels, who'd fled to Switzerland 1943 because of Mussolini. In Zurich, Chiara taught in secondary schools. Like the common people, this author wasn't lazy. After the war, returned to Italy. Lago Maggiore, home to Varese. The gentleman who knew Chiara well had much about his novels me to tell. We got on well. Had I prized, the doctor asked, passion profound, or small-town life in him? They saw me reading his Una spina nel cuore, a thorn in the heart. Asked, did you find Varese's local chit-chat tart? View it as art, as literary speech? I do recall my answers please them each, and I resolved to read all Chiara's works to improve my fluency, despite so many years of flagrant English only truancy. Well, I finally reached Rome, and I gave each a kiss goodbye, but I'm not going to read Poem 13, Rome at Last. It was rather, how shall I say, a tearful parting, for we three people felt a connection through literature, one with the other, though I had only met them boarding the train. That happens, or it used to happen, when traveling by train in Europe. I hope it still does. Here is the last portion of my book. It's section 14 of poem 91, and it is called Letter to My Credit Card. Dear Visa, thanks so much. I've made the grand tour again and got in touch. No robberies, no fall, no mishaps at all. Everyone's been kind. Neither hair dryer nor passport left behind. I spoke a foreign tongue with elderly, middle-aged, I'm middle-aged, and young. Miss the girls and Bill, yet won't forget the thrill of being on my own, of shedding academic, familial cares, of climbing iron stairs of any train, of lolling on a sunny square or splashing in the rain. The smell of cooking passed me by, skinny cats enjoying naps as much as I. Museums sheltered me from storms, the careful shedding of some norms. The sexual swagger of Italian men, quite unconcealed. Consider the lilies of the field. They toil not, neither do they spin. Matthew 6:28. Solomon was dressed in all his glory. I felt I got the best cloak, my story. Didn't need to spin another. I let train wheels do it for me. I let the whole world take me in, and I took it in, no doubt. And so taking, cast all boredom out. And that is the last poem of Traveling a Place, ... and to other places. I explain how I look upon writing poetry on the back cover. But why do you need the back cover when you've had me reading all these poems to you from the inside of the book? Thank you very much for your kind attention.